Using the jars well on the other side is not something a lot of people seem to be putting much thought into. I swear this is the thing I see done wrong specifically the most out of anything in any dungeon. And if you ever watch my runs on stream, I always comment on it. And to me, it seems like it's a pretty big deal. The rage cast on this mob is actually incredibly dangerous. And doing this right might take an entire one out of the fight. And especially on Fortified, every time you have to deal with even a single one, it can easily kill you. Usually the healer has to commit major CDs, and sometimes people even commit things like immunity. And then if there's more to come, they won't have anything up and they might die. This mob almost always claims a life or two, honestly. Even people getting hit by the masks. So I feel like people should have gotten better at this by now, but this is one of those things that I'm not sure people fully understand how it works. So I have some good footage here. I want to show you exactly what happens with this mob and how its casts work. It's pretty straightforward, but if you've never seen it before, you might not actually know how optimized you can actually be by using this jar.
Sacrifices, all that blood, how they were gonna. You don't need worshippers. The Jews are gonna give me all the power I need. And when Sam need the one who's gonna be forgotten.
On the menagerie fight? Yeah. No, I know all about that, yeah. So this footage shows that you literally can have no rage casts at all. And then of course we have somebody committing major CDs to that. We have really good damage on the mob in general. But if you're fighting multiple of these in a dungeon, isn't this what you want? You want to take no damage from this cast. So let's have a little bit more of a deep dive into how you accomplish this. And I'll explain to you maybe if it's not obvious why it's happening. So if it's not immediately obvious, this guy has a set pattern in which he casts the spells in. Now I will say that I have seen him deviate from this occasionally. And I was told the reason that happens is if he gets so far without actually meleeing somebody, he changes up the pattern. I don't exactly know how that works, but all I can say is for sure if you engage him and he immediately is in your melee range and you're in his, this is what happens. First thing he's going to do is cast the Enraged mask. And I do also want to talk about this mechanic really quick. Let me just tell you that these mobs are actually stunnable, or you can disrupt them in a lot of different ways. Grip doesn't work, but things like AoE stun and probably fears, I know blind work, anything that will stop a mob from casting a spell will stop these mobs from casting the spell that they're casting, Enraged mask, whatever it is. And when that cast finishes, they actually deal damage on the ground. So up until that point, they pose no threat. I see a lot of people posturing around them, like if they expect to die to them and then they're worried about doing that, well, just stun the one that's nearest to you. And that's going to be really important here because as you see, somebody's trying to click the jar. So we don't want the person who's trying to click the jar getting hit by these. Best way to do that is with stuns. That comes first. Then after that, he's going to actually start casting the rage. So in general, the way you're dealing with this is just interrupting that too. Just like you could interrupt the masks with a stun, all we want to do is stop this cast. The problem is though, you need to stop it properly. A lot of mobs in this game have what I like to call an upcast, meaning they're about to do a channel and they start casting a spell that starts the channel. This has been incredibly common over the years in 5-mans. Not really sure if there's been many actual player spells like this, but the way it almost has always worked in this game is the upcast is not going to stop the spell being used. It's simply going to delay it. And that's the exact same situation we have here. He's going to cast a spell called Rage that is then going to allow him to channel the rage damage that we're all going to take and potentially die to. So if this was an interruptible spell and you use your interrupt on this version of it, it would lock him out, but it would not put the spell on cooldown, which undoubtedly it has a cooldown. So interrupting it after he has started the cast will then have the cooldown incurred. And that is where things become incredibly crucial. But let's just see that play out. So you see the cast is done and then we use the jar. He has begun the rage channel, but nobody has really taken any damage from it yet. It looks like we might have gotten one tick, but that's it. And now it's gone, right? Because now it's on cooldown. What you'll also notice here is you have, obviously a few seconds of a stun here where he can't do anything. And that's what you're really trying to capitalize. But a lot of people don't realize that both go hand in hand here. You see the mob gets to almost 20% before he even starts auto attacking again. And then you see the whole footage that I showed already that he actually dies before he even tries tries to cast it again. But I think a lot of people think like, oh, just stun the mob, that's enough. And you know, the stun's nice and all, and you could use the jars in a variety of ways in this dungeon, but it's really not that powerful. But using it that way is incredibly powerful because it's going to actually prevent him from doing really any damage to you whatsoever and put the spell on cooldown. So a lot of times you'll see people just kind of get up here and use it as fast as possible. A lot of times people are so short he hasn't even started the rage cast, and if that happens, he will then immediately cast rage afterwards. Now that might not be a bad thing because that then allows the healer to know exactly when he has to use CDs. I have seen a lot of people assume he's going to get the cast off here, the jar stuns him, and then the spirit link is on the ground when he's not even doing damage. So that's equally bad, and maybe this is harder to organize in a pug than it might sound. But you should at least be aware that if you're a Night Fae in a group with nobody else, of how to do this perfectly. I'm going to show you exactly how long you need from when you pull the mob to when he casts his first ability to when he does the rage. Let's take a look at that. So at 1 second, he has done his first auto attack. We are fully engaged with the mob. So it's about 5 seconds before he starts the cast of Enraged Mask, which looks like that's probably a 2-second cast as well. And then about 5 seconds later, we see him start the rage cast. Looks like exactly 1.5 second cast. So roughly you have about 10.5 seconds from the time you pull him to when the jar needs to be cast. So you now know exactly when you need to hit this, but maybe you're not the kind of person who's able to think out those 10 to 11 seconds in your head, or you're not using a weak or anything like that to track it. But Blizzard actually gives you something that you could monitor to make this even easier. We're going to go back to the previous mechanic while he's casting the Enraged Mask, and as soon as he does, you're going to see he gets a buff or debuff, whatever, up here, and this is going to last for a set amount of time that's then going to segue into the next ability. Looks like it's going to be about 4 seconds. We have 8 seconds on the footage here, and then it's going to fall off in the 12 seconds. So it's about 4 seconds. Now at this point, you can start posturing to hit this jar. I'm not exactly sure how long the jar cast is itself. I can't find that answer anywhere for some reason. So if anybody does know, comment down below for sure. But it does look like we have from 12 seconds. The second he starts this, it's 1.5 seconds. Did look like he started it maybe a second after the debuff fell off. So provided the jar cast is at least 2.5 seconds, that should line up perfectly. But yeah, maybe don't start it the exact second the thing is falling off, because if you don't end up on the other side of this rage cast, you will have completely wasted your opportunity. You will just interrupt the upcast, and then he will just immediately cast it again. You can use that debuff on the character as a bit of a focal point to know exactly when you want to use this jar. At that point, as long as you interrupt it, he's stunned for 10 whole seconds. You have all that time to DPS him without doing anything. And then on the other side of that, he'll come back and just immediately start doing the Enraged Mask cast again. And then you'll have another 5-second window to get that all done as well. So you're giving yourself basically at least 15 seconds here of no damage on this side and about 10 seconds of no damage on the other side. So as long as you can kill this mob in about 30 seconds, this guy becomes a complete pushover, and all it takes is precise timing with the jar. So I hope this helped. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If you know of any other better way to track this or anything you've been looking at, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next one.